What up? I'm Josh Paulson, and today I want to talk about what do you actually need to know to work as a professional game programmer. Good mosquito. That that you are still here. Okay, there's a mosquito. Makes me sad. That's okay. Okay, so to talk about this, what do you actually need to know to work as a professional game programmer? I know that this is something that I kind of questioned in the past because I was trying to figure out how to get into game dev in general, really, and I just wasn't really sure how to answer this question. And now I want to share some things that I think will help you if you are trying to become a professional game programmer and are like, what do I do? What do I actually look at? How do I know if I'm ready or where I'm at? And I'm going to break this down into three different areas, and it's probably going to feel kind of silly sounding at first, but I think that these are really critical, and I'm going to dig into each of these. So what do you actually need to know to work as a professional game programmer? Number one, you need to know enough. Now, what do I mean by enough? Well, you need to know enough in order to do the specific job. It might be that you are a master of web programming and that has no application for the game that you're actually applying for, the game position. And so you need to know enough for that position to meet the goals for that role. The next thing is that you need to know how to do the work. And so what do I mean when I say how to do the work? Well, obviously you need to know how to code. You need to know how to code in whatever kind of paradigm or language that they're using. I can go over this way. And that's really important because if you don't know how to do the work, yeah, I hope you don't get the job because that's not going to be good for the company or for you. Really, like it might be good for you, but it's probably not going to be a very good mutualistic relationship. Probably going to cause problems. So the next thing is how to sell yourself. So you might be a fantastic programmer and have no idea how to sell yourself. Now, there are certain gigs where, selling yourself is kind of part of it, like doing marketing, or if you're a salesperson, you probably need to know how to sell yourself for the interview, or else maybe you're not very reliable for the role. Maybe you are, and it was just a bad day. But anyway, for programming, this kind of it's not too uncommon for programmers to be the type of people who would respond in grunts or not really respond that much. Now, I actually, all the people that I work with are like very social programmers, I would say. I mean, we have a lot of introverts, but none of them struggle to carry a conversation, and all of them are happy to talk about what they're passionate about. And so, but it's something where maybe you struggle with that, or you're trying to figure out how to do that effectively. And so, yeah, you need to know enough, you need to know how to do the work, and you need to know sell yourself. Good, I counted to 3. Okay, so let's dig into each of these and really talk about what they mean. The first thing that I really want to zoom in on is enough. And I guess I can zoom in on the face at least. Look, my face. Okay, so here's what I would say as far as trying to figure out what does enough look like. It's going to depend on the role. It's going to depend on the company. It's going to depend on the person that you're interviewing with as well. And so there are a few things to look at here. One of them is follow people who work at companies that you'd like to work with online. As an example, let's say that you want to work at Unity. I feel like for some reason people, when they talk about game dev jobs, they don't really think about game engine development, but that's a huge thing that you could definitely get into. So let's say that you're like, hey, I want to work with Unity, I want to work on ECS stuff, or I want to just figure out how could I work with Mike Acton. He's a pretty cool guy. Now, I feel like I need to give the caveat here that I love my job. I'm not looking to switch jobs. I've already had one person randomly message me being like, hey, are you interested in a new role? And I'm like, that sounds like, sure, it might sound cooler in some ways, but it's not. I want to be where I'm at. I love where I'm at, and I'm not looking to move. So not physically, I just mean I love where I'm at. So I mean, if you wanted to contact Defiance Game Studio to be like, hey, can we contract you, go for it. But I'm not looking to move right now. So all of this is hopefully for you and to help you. This isn't something that I'm interested in for myself at all right now. So let's look at Mike Acton's Twitter. Let's look at what Mike Acton is talking about. If you want to work in a similar department or with Mike Acton, odds are you wouldn't work with him directly. It always depends on where you're going. But the thing is that you can see what kind of stuff is he talking about. Oh, he's talking about a data-oriented concepts. He's talking about data-oriented programming. Now, obviously, he's also heading up ECS and those systems at Unity, helping with that. And so that's kind of an obvious thing. You can look at some of his talks on YouTube as well. But if you look at the types of things that these people are talking about, that they are discussing, it gives you really good insight into the types of things that you might need to know for the job. Now, there's a little bit of discernment in what is there that is relevant to the job and what are they talking about that's just their side hobby project. I think that in most cases that's not too hard to decipher. But even if you ended up learning something and you're like, oh crap, that's not needed needed for the job, but it's good to learn. It's not like you've had a loss. You've just learned something extra. And so that's a really big thing. And I'm going to give you a freebie here because this is sort of an obvious thing. If you find educational resources from a place you want to work, then by all means, spend time learning those things and looking into them. So, the thing is that like, I guess I'm not quite sure what to say. Yeah, it's really helpful. And you need to learn how that company does it because, for example, at Defiance, we do OOP. Here's the thing, though, is that there are different ideas on what OOP is. And I remember when I first applied, I was afraid that we were going to be doing a bunch of programming practices that I absolutely despise and hate. And okay, but we don't. And nobody at the company thinks they're good. And I like that a lot because I was worried I would hate programming here, to be perfectly honest, and I don't. And I'm glad. But here's the thing, is that you might be looking at it and going, oh man, okay, so here is what I have to do. Here is the type of stuff that I have to learn in order to get there. And you learn it from another source. If you can learn it directly from the source that you want to work with, then learn it from that source because they will have their own twist on it. Learning their twist is going to really help you with working for them. So we're not hiring at Defiance Game Studio, but if we were, then I would say look through our Codecraft videos. I mean, you can look through them anyway. We did one recently on deciding when to rewrite code versus refactoring, or just leave it be. I think that's great. And so the thing is that you can learn a lot about what people are looking for. And some of it's just kind of freebies. It might just be that you look up interviews with top programmers, or you look up articles on what the types of things that they do. And so if you can learn those paradigms, learn the way that they program, it will make you way more marketable in working with them. And so when I say enough, I guess that I'm starting to dip into the how to sell yourself a bit here. But if you look at enough, the thing is enough for the gig, enough for the role, enough for the position. It does not mean that you have to be an amazing programmer in all languages. And if you're applying for a Unity position, you don't have to be great with Unreal. If you're applying for an Unreal position, you don't have to be great with Unity. Some jobs, that might be a benefit if you know both, but what do you need to know for that job? You need to know enough. And I don't want to make that sound like, oh man, like just meet the bare minimum, yay. Obviously, I really value always growing, always learning, always developing yourself. But here's the thing, is that when it comes to applying for jobs, you just need to know enough. You need to know enough in order to fulfill the role. If you're not amazing at other things, but you're amazing at the role, or you're able to fill those shoes, because some jobs they're looking for a junior, they don't want a senior yet, or things like that, then you just need to know enough. And if you know enough, then you can work the role. You can do good there. And so enough is the first thing that I would say. So yeah, follow people online who are working at places that you'd like to work at, or places similar at least, and see the types of things that they talk about, the types of problems they want to solve, the programming paradigm that they follow, because that will really help you in the interview process. If somebody is all about OOP in a certain method, then learn their methodology, learn what they're doing, and follow that. If they're like, don't do OOP, OOP sucks, I hate OOP, then don't go in there and talk about how great OOP is. Learn what they're doing and learn how to work with that. Learn how to do that effectively. I'm personally a big fan of learning different programming paradigms anyway, because it just makes me a better programmer. And even if I use one for a while and then I'm like, well, this is why you don't use it, now I can talk about that. Now I can understand that better on why you don't use that programming paradigm. So let's go on to number 2. Number 2 is how to do the work. So what do I mean when I say that? Obviously, you need to know how to program. You're applying to be a programmer. If you don't know how to program and you're applying to be a programmer, oof. Okay, so let's look at this. So there are 3 real questions that you can ask yourself when it comes to this, because there's the how to do the work, but there's 3 sub-questions, and they're all beautiful. So what is the work is the first question. If you don't know what the work is, if you're just like, well, the work is being a game programmer, then I would say you don't really understand what the work is. One way that you can figure out what is the type of work is that you see what types of things programmers are talking about. And some of that, like, there could be some of it is podcasts, some of it is also papers. Like you will find articles online of people being like, hey, here are some game programming things, here are some problems that I was trying to solve. And if you look at those things, then you'll see, oh, there are people talking about this, there are people responding to this article, there are people responding to these ideas. Hey, I'm going to want to learn how to do these things because that's going to be very helpful. There are some, I'm trying to remember what they're called. There were some really good articles written on how to solve different game programming problems. And if you look into articles like that, then you're going to learn things that people are doing and talking about to solve problems. I guess that a general thing, so I'm curious, actually this is one thing that I didn't look up before I started doing this. Oh, now you can see what kinds of videos I watch, so you can judge me for that. Okay, so what I want to look at is GDC programming. I'll just see programming paradigm. Maybe just programming would be fine. No, I want computer files great, but I'm looking for GDC. Programming talks. Okay, there's a playlist. I doubt it's all of them. Math for game programmers. Yeah, if you look at GDC, so goal-oriented action programming. This is one of the ones that I was thinking of actually. So if you are like, hey, I really want to learn, what do I need to know? One great way to figure that out is that you look at the types of talks that there are online about different systems, and I'm also going to add this in. You might, when first watching these things, not get it. And that's okay. Some of these things are the types of things that as you're starting to learn it, you need to watch it multiple times. You need to watch other things. Don't just keep watching that one over and over again. But you need to watch it multiple times to start to get it. I know that at least one talk by Mike Acton that I saw, I was like, I am too new to understand some of these pieces. But over time, as I would watch the same talk a few times and I'd be like, I'm starting to get it. I'm starting to understand what he's saying, what he means when he says this, where he's coming from. And that was good. And so it's one of those things where sometimes it just takes time to learn these different pieces. If you don't get it the first time, that doesn't mean you're dumb or that you can't get it. That means that you might need more time with it, or maybe you need to learn other concepts, and then when you come back, it will make more sense. So you need to know what is the work. And so I know I'm saying, like, here are some different types of things in game development in general, but you can also look at the specific job and be like, what are the kinds of problems that they might want to solve? Heck, if you want to go really crazy, maybe this is... I'm trying to figure out if this is a good... I'm trying to figure out if this is good advice for this or not. But one of the things that you could look at is, okay, is there a specific aspect of a game that a game company that you've made that you love, that you absolutely love this aspect of it? Like, let's just go with a really extreme example. Let's say that you love the Spider-Man game from Insomniac. I'm not recommending that you remake Spider-Man on your own, but let's say that you're like, you know what? I really like the web swinging. I really like flying around the city that way. What if you programmed just that feature? If you fall on the ground, you just die. You don't worry about that. But what if you programmed just that feature and you started to learn some of those things? Try to figure out what kind of programming paradigms they were looking at. You tried to follow some of that, or at least go similar, so that you could end up learning how some of those things could be implemented. If you look at things like that, then you're going more in line with the types of things that people could actually be looking for. And so now you're going to have to, again, look at the gig. But another example of what is the work that you can look at is that, so for myself, let's say that you're like, I want to take Josh's job. First off, how dare? And second off, I don't know. The concept doesn't bother me too much because I just want the best person to be doing the best thing. And so I think that's me right now for what I'm doing specifically. And so I'm happy with that. But I recognize that there's always going to be jobs and tasks where other people are better for that, and that's okay. So the thing, though, is that like if you were like, hey, I want to work at Defiance, we don't have any openings right now. But if you were like that, then one of the things that you could do is that you could look at what are the tasks that Josh is working on? What are the tasks in the update videos that they are talking about? I want to learn how to do some of those things. Like, I'm learning how to rewrite a save system. We're probably not always going to need that. But if you're like, hey, I want to learn some serialization stuff, that could be worth learning. If you want to learn about, hey, how can I make these systems, these procedural systems, doing some procedural generation would be good. That would be a good way to get your feet wet with the kinds of things that we do here. And you've got this whole codecraft thing to figure out, hey, how would we potentially program this? And you can follow those as a guide. Okay, so that's the first part, though, of how to do the work. What is the work? You need to know what the work actually is. And then, what do I need to know to do the work? That's the second question, because you might need to know a lot to do the work, or you might not need to know a lot to do the work. And knowing that is really important. So, what do you need to know to do the work? If you're not sure, look up people doing that work online and see what they're talking about. So honestly, in a lot of my vlogs right now, I don't get very specific or honed in on exactly what I'm doing and what that looks like. I can give more details if you're interested. If you're interested, let me know. If you're not interested, don't let me know because I'll be sad. No, you can let me know if you're not interested because I want to do what you're interested in. So here's the thing, is that when it comes to knowing how to do the work, look up what people doing that work are talking about. So as an example, if you asked me more about, hey, how are you doing the save system? There are a few things that I would tell you that are really important for this. One of them is that debugging tools are very important. We need to know what went wrong in the save file. And so I built a custom logging tool for that so that we could end up separating out some of the things so that we could log bugs asynchronously because we were running into issues with async. We wanted to be able to multi-thread our saving and loading of the game. And I'm just going to throw out, if you don't know what some of the terms that I'm using mean, look them up. Like multi-thread, you can Google that. You can Google what is multi-threading. You can Google what is asynchronous. You can Google what is serialization, and those are all valuable things for you to look at. And so The big thing, though, is that if you're not sure what you need to know to do the work, see what people online are talking about. And if you ask, also, a lot of people, they might be happy to be like, oh, here's what I was doing. Maybe in some cases it's proprietary and they can't talk about it that much. But in some cases, they'll just be happy to be like, oh, yeah, here's what I was doing. Or you can find GDC talk about that. CGDC is a Christian Game Developers Conference, which is not the same thing. GDC has a lot more, it's got a different focus in a lot of ways with a lot more. Like if you're looking for intense programming tutorials, you go to GDC. Anyway, so how to do the work. Yeah, what do I need to know to do the work? So the third piece of that is, how do I learn what I need to know to do the work? And I'm gonna have to delete some stuff here because it's taking up too much space. So how do I learn? Why don't I copy paste? Because copy paste is amazing. It's almost as amazing as you are, but you're actually more amazing than copy paste. I want you to know, if nobody's told you this today, that you're more amazing than copy paste. Okay, so how do I learn what I need to know to do the work? So there's a few different ways to do that. One of them is obviously if anybody has resources available, then you look at those. You look at those resources. We have Codecraft at Defiance. If you wanted to work with us or learn how to work with us, then you look at those things because you're going to learn how we do it here and have a better chance of working with us. Okay, and then Oh yeah, this was something else I want to talk about. What else did I have here? Oh yeah. Okay, so how to do the work. I'm trying to figure out if I ought to jump into this quite yet. Maybe. It feels like a bit of a jump back, but one of the things as far as how to do the work is that, so how do you learn what you need actually, this is probably perfect. How do you learn what you need to know to do the work? So here's the thing, is that we don't always know where we're actually at. I've seen people, and I think I've been the person who thinks that I'm farther ahead than I am. And I've also been and seen the people who think that they are further behind than they are. And actually, there's a really good video by Designer Dave on YouTube. I'm going to leave a link to it in the description of game design, Dunning-Kruger, and you. And I think that the Dunning-Kruger effect is something where you can talk about this with any discipline. He's focusing more on the game design aspect, but really good pieces. I think this is a really good video to watch if you're like learning and trying to figure things out, because he talks about how there's a point where you think that you know it all and then you're like, crap, I don't know it all, and there's kind of this whoop, like there's this kind of curve where you start to learn more and more. And so he talks about your confidence and your knowledge in the field, and how there's kind of this dip as you learn more and then you start to become more confident again. I mean, I did that in the reverse order for you. So I think that's a really good video to look at if you're trying to figure out where you're at, because that self-awareness is really important to be like, where am I actually at? Just because you made it doesn't mean it's amazing. I like things that I cook more than I like things that other people cook, not because it's necessarily better than what other people have made, but because I made it and there's a special taste that I get with it, because I'm like, I made it, I feel happy. But I wouldn't necessarily serve it to other people because I recognize it's not as good. You kind of need to learn some of that self-awareness and that self-perception, is that what you're looking at that you think is amazing today, how do I put this in a way that doesn't, it might not be. I don't know how else to say it. It might not be. It might be really bad even. It might be terrible. You might look on it with shame in 10 years. And heck, if I look at some of the games that I made when I was 9 years old, I'm not as impressed by them now as I was back then. It's just a fact of things. And that's always going to be a piece of the experience. I don't think that you have to hate everything that you used to do. Some people will talk about it like that's a requirement. But there's going to be a growth, or at least hopefully there's going to be a growth. You need to keep growing and developing. And so I guess I probably covered that pretty well. So let's keep going then. So let's look at number 3. So how to sell yourself. So we have 3 questions here as well. I'm going to delete those ones. And so the questions are, the first question for how to sell yourself is, who do you want to reach? Who do you want to reach? So the thing is that let's say that you are really looking to connect with engine engineers. That's engine programmers. And so let's say that you are looking into that. When you know that that's who you want to reach, that can change the types of things that you focus in on. How to sell yourself. Who do you want to reach? You want to learn what those people are looking for. You want to know what those people are interested in. And so a big part of how to sell yourself is knowing who do you want to reach. If you don't know who you want to reach, then good luck reaching them. Another thing is, what do they want? And this is really what it goes into. So here's the thing, is that as far as who do you want to reach, here's an example of misguided reachingness. So let's say that you are like, hey, I really want to connect with the people. I really want to reach people doing the hiring. And then let's say that you make all of your resources so that they don't really connect with the types of people who would be hiring you, or that you make your tools, you make your portfolio so that it doesn't connect with those people. It connects with people who are like trying to think of a good example that's not too recent so that I can actually use it without any potential like identifications of people's. Okay, so let's say that you are trying to reach hiring managers and for programming, and instead you make a bunch of blog posts that are targeting artists and tools for artists. That might be good. That might be good depending on what they're looking for, but it depends on what they're looking for. You need to see what the types of people that you're looking to work with are looking for and build towards that. Now, it might be that tools for artists are exactly what they're looking for, and so that's brilliant, and that's going to really hit the nail on the head. It might also be that they're really not interested in tools for artists. They're interested in perhaps not even tools. They're like, hey, we want you to build some of the core functionality using the tools that other people are building. And you just need to be aware of that. You need to see what you can learn about that. What do the people that you are looking to connect with actually want? And here's the third item. How do I get more of what they want? So let's say, as an example, that somebody really wants someone who has got great experience in ECS. How do you get more of that experience? I mean, there are some obvious answers, like you do more ECS work yourself, but, and if you don't know what ECS is, there's another example of something to Google. Okay, so you can, how do you get more of what they want? In a lot of cases, it is learning, but it might also be that maybe depending on the role, like building up your network would help. Like maybe more of what they want to see that you're well connected in the industry, or that you've got other people who can speak for you, who can vouch for you. And so how do you get more of what they want? Maybe they want to see more team experience, and you don't have that yet. And so being able to show that you can work with teams, maybe you need to do more game jams, or you need to lead some small projects or things like that. And so you need to figure out what they want. How do you get more of what they want? And so, let's look at this again as an overview. So, what do you actually need to know to work as a professional game programmer? You need to know enough. You need to know how to do the work, and ask yourself these questions. What is the work? What do I need to know to do the work? And how do I learn what I need to know to do the work? And then we've got number 3, how to sell yourself. Who do you want to reach? What do those people you're trying to reach want? And how do you get more of what they want? And what I've done in a lot of these videos in the past is that I'll talk a little bit about what I'm doing, and I realize that given the context of this video, maybe that's really helpful for me to talk about. So I'm going to dig a little bit into that right now. So what I've been working on most recently, let me see, were any of these? Oh yeah, this was actually a big thing that I think is really helpful when it comes to selling yourself. There was a video that I just saw this morning by Atrioc, which it's speaking more to broader markets, but I think that it is something that you can apply and look at for selling yourself, and that I'm actually thinking about as far as marketing and figuring out my own resources and my own blogs and stuff like that. And basically he talks about perceived value, price, and cost as these 3 lines for marketing. And so basically, ideally, you have your costs down, you have your price up, what you're charging, and your perceived value always needs to be above your price. And so part of it is that as far as like selling yourself as a programmer, that sort of thing, you want to make sure now cost, there is an aspect where perhaps that doesn't seem to, I guess that there are ways that you can apply it. Maybe it's not a perfect comparison. I can think about it more in the sense of content creation, but like you want to make sure that your perceived value is higher than the cost that people would be paying to work with you. It's just a general fact, and this is something that I don't know if anybody is going to be happy to hear this, but if you think they should be willing to pay me this because I am worth that, people want to pay you less than what you're worth. And I think that some people, I don't know if there's a good way for this to come across, or if that's just going to come across horrendously. Obviously, there are people who would try to take advantage of you. I'm not talking about that specifically, but a business will pay you if you make them back more than what they're spending on you. And so, like, just as a note in general, like if you do not, if your gain for the company is as much as their loss from paying you, they're not going to want to pay you. That's just a fact. That, and maybe to some people it's like, that's not fair. That's just kind of reality. And so if your goal, again, I'm not saying like let yourself be taken advantage of or let people undercut you or things like that, but you need to make sure that that your perceived value, and ideally the value that you actually are bringing, is higher than the price that people are paying for you. And generally, maybe this really falls apart here. Maybe I just liked the video for other context and it doesn't apply as well here. I think I'll move off of that. But maybe I just learned about it and I have the Dunning-Kruger effect about marketing. Anyway, so you need to learn what it is that you are, that was the wrong way to phrase that. Anyway, you need to learn where your value is that you're providing and what your perceived value that you're providing is, and figure out how to increase the perceived value. And I'm not talking about lying. Like, I guess that the phrase might seem bad, but there is a self-marketing side to this, to where you really want to make sure that you're providing a lot of value. One of the things that I think this might be more true for programmers is that programmers can really struggle with selling themselves. I would not claim that I did a great job of selling myself for my current job, to be honest, but I have done a great job in other contexts of selling myself, whether that was, and in most cases it was that I had a job and I sold myself to higher pay, I sold myself to more responsibility by automating tasks, by honestly, in a lot of, I automated my job away multiple times. Automating tasks, it was by reducing the time for long tasks, it was by saving other people time so they could focus on what was important for their roles. There's a lot of things that you can do like that. And so being able to sell yourself is really an important skill to have. And I guess I don't know that I have more to say on all that. Oh yeah, so what is the stuff that I've actually been doing recently? So I've done some more work on the save system. It's generally been integration. It has not been building out the save system itself. There have been little pieces that have come up, but most of it has been integration, and then also fixing some bugs around how we load and save in the game so that we get a lot more stability for it, and also doing some work to help some of my coworkers with some of their tasks where it all needs to mix together. And there have been some issues where, for example, some of the code for the GUI is very mixed up with the code for changing data, and we want those to be separate so that you can run a method and be like, update the GUI, and then you can run another method that updates the data. And we don't necessarily always want to update the GUI when we update the data, or vice versa. There are cases where, for example, we might be loading a location, or that's generally the problem case actually, is that we load in a location, we load in an area, and it updates the data while it's updating the GUI. And we might not want the data to be changed, we just want to load the GUI because we've already changed the data elsewhere. And so we're running into issues with that, and so that's one of the things that I've been working on most recently. And so I guess that if you're looking for a programming lesson from that, one of the big things is making sure that that you consider what the different desires are for a program, and that you split those apart effectively. People can go crazy for that and like split things apart way too much, but I think as an example, just being able to update the GUI separately from updating the data, that's a pretty common kind of request that you might have. It might even be that you want to do a ton of updates to the data in a single frame, and you don't want to try updating the GUI. You don't want to run all these updates on the GUI. Okay, well, let's just be able to update the data a bunch, leave the GUI alone, and then update the GUI when we actually want to. So there's a, I guess, hot tip. I don't know if it's that hot, but something to think about. And yeah, that's what I've been doing most recently. And yeah, if you can talk about it and you're interested to, leave me a comment on what you're working on right now, what problems you're trying to solve. Also, I'm really interested in seeing what kinds of questions you might have and what kinds of things you might be trying to figure out in your own game programming or game development journey. Let me know in the comments, and I'll see if it's something that I can answer. If it's something that I'm like, I don't know enough to answer that, maybe I can see if I can pull someone else along and be like, can you answer this question? I don't know, maybe I shouldn't make a promise. Like, I guess I'm not making a promise. I'm saying I might be able to. You know, I'm a programmer. As a programmer, gotta be very careful with my promises, because I'm like, well, you know what, it's like a 99%. It's like programmers won't tell you if things work. They'll tell you it should work. Yeah, it should probably work. They're rarely gonna be like, oh yeah, this is gonna work, because we always have to account for the 1% because we're programmers. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you have a fantastic rest of your day, and take care.